Who is catching the eye of media and who should fans be paying attention to as Auburn football continues their spring practices over the next few weeks? We get to the bottom of it on today's Locked On Auburn.
Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It is a Ferg Friday. It's Justin Ferguson with the Auburn Observer, who's back. You're back into a somewhat normal schedule after a crazy few weeks.
Yeah, no, I finally know what day of the week it is. It's taken me weeks to figure that out. No, it's right. I wish I was in Chicago covering this basketball team because they were so much fun to cover.
Yeah.
But getting to kind of wind down a little bit. I mean, those of us who have been covering this team, we've been going pretty much full speed since August, and still got spring football to go through. But it's not quite as the same intensity as covering, full seasons. Both of those sports. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good to kind of take a breath and get back to normal a little bit.
Yeah, you're covering what glimpses of 20-minute glimpses of time and trying to see what all information you can get
right
from these open windows and kind of using reasoning as far as who's taking reps where and all of that stuff. And so yesterday, Thursday morning's newsletter with the Auburn Observer, it's I think it was a lot of good information. I'm not going to list all 12 by any means, but you listed 12 players, and I love that you did it in alphabetical order. So you're like, don't read into this. This is just the alphabetical order of 12 players that I did. And I think that was great. Yeah. But two of the guys that you did, and I hope I'm not giving too much away here, but I haven't talked a whole lot about Cayden Bridges and Caleb Wooden. Yep. Other than, we did a full show on like roster updates as far as both of those guys gained like 10 plus pounds each, if I recall correctly. They've just really changed their bodies. But you put both of those guys among those 12 that have really caught your eye.
Yeah.
What is it about these two safeties that have kind of stood out to you?
Well, it's just they're young guys getting opportunities in the two deep from what we've been able to see. Caleb Wooden was kind of the early star. Week one, we heard about him. Forcing 2 turnovers in his first ever practice, a lot of good energy. A lot of guys seem to really, really like him because he just comes in and attacks and, studying film with some of the older players. His older brother really has rubbed off on him, I think. Just the work ethic and the kind of dude that Colby Wooden is. You can expect that out of Caleb. And even though Caleb was not a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school, in fact, he was the lowest rated one that Auburn signed in this class. He is an early enrollee, and Auburn really thought that they got a diamond in the rough with him. So this is a dude. I don't know if he's going to make the two deep this year, but if you're looking at maybe a young guy you can get on the field early, special teams, or even finding ways to get into certain packages, I mean, he's off to a really, really good start. And I think when you talk to coaches and players about him, it's like, yeah, he's got a long way to go in terms of learning the system and getting but like he brings a lot of like the foundational stuff you really need to bring, and not every freshman can show that this early. It takes kind of a special guy to do that. And so I think he's definitely one of those. And then with Cayden Bridges was a guy that stepped out to me early on because he was getting reps, sometimes even with the first team at safety, just kind of rotating around, getting in the mix. He's another one who gained a pretty good bit of weight this offseason and really kind of transformed his body. And the fact that, Auburn's looking for somebody to step up at safety with the guys that they've lost. They like, obviously, what they have with Zion Puckett back there, but they need more safeties to step up. And Cayden was a guy that, even though he didn't play last season that much, he's got a year in the system. And I think that might be why he's a little bit ahead right now of a guy like, some of these guys that have come in that are from the JUCO level or just kind of brand new to the spot because, it's early. So at least he has the foundation kind of in there. And so, I mean, both of those guys, when you see young dudes, you hear about them making plays that early, and then you hear about, kind of see them with your own eyes like, man, that dude's out there surrounded by a lot of vets. But that's a really good sign for these young players. If this is the time of year where you start to see potential breakout players start to emerge, and through the first 2 weeks, you've heard a lot of good stuff about Cayden Bridges.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's encouraging because that is an open battle.
Yeah,
for those safety spots, don't you think? I know you mentioned Zion Bucket; he may be quote unquote a lock to be one of those guys, but outside of it, it's pretty open, I would think.
Yeah, it is pretty open, and there's a number of guys that you can kind of move around there in certain spots, and I feel bad because I'm already blanking on the name of the JUCO safety that who am I trying to think
Gilbert?
of?
Is that his name?
Marquise Gilbert. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. Apologies, Mr. Gilbert. No,
he's been here 5 minutes. I'm sure he'll understand.
Right, exactly. With a thing like with Marquise Gilbert, though, JUCO player, you go out and get a guy like that to be an instant impact player, but early on might not be as ahead of the game as a dude who has been here for a little while longer, even if he is a younger player. And so I think, I would imagine some of these transfers, and they're all over the defense when you talk about like Eugene Asante or DJ James, and there's a number of guys around there, Jason Jones. Although I did mention Jones in the newsletter for one major reason, but those guys don't even if you didn't play last season, you've been in the system for a year, and I think you're able to kind of hit the ground running in your second spring, or maybe for some of these guys your first spring even harder. And I think that's what we're seeing right now out of a guy like Cayden Bridges, and he's got great size. I think he is a big safety, and exactly kind of what you want patrolling the top of the defense.
Yeah, I really like what he brings to the table there. And like Donovan Kaufman, is he essentially just the nickel moving forward, you think?
Yeah, we're seeing him mostly at nickel. But he's safety as well. And like it's just gonna be a matter of time. Like they approach nickel very much like Derek Mason approached nickel, and it's that there's not a guy that you say, quote unquote, you're Mr. Nickel. Basically, it's like depends on the situation. Earlier downs, you might want to bring a third safety in there. Later downs, when it's obvious passing situations, you want more of a slot corner there. And it would be amazing. And Auburn kind of has had some of these guys like that over the years, but it would be amazing if you had one guy that could do both of those things at a really, really high level. Instead, what they do is keep guys fresher and play a little bit more situational football. You try to identify, here are the corners who can do that, and here are the safeties who can do that, and we can play them in these certain spots. So I think Kaufman's very much of that third safety. Okay. I think one of those guys that can get out there and, if they try to switch and get another corner, out and out corner on the field on those passing downs, I think you would see Kaufman kick back to safety in those situations. So
maybe Pritchett your third corner, or Jalen Simpson.
Pritchett, Simpson, and then whoever that third corner is at that point.
TJ James, probably.
TJ James makes a lot of sense. Another guy I mentioned in the news there, we've heard a lot about JD Rim. JD Rim has come in as an early enrollee and has flashed early on.
It's not Rhyme, it's Rim. I'm saying Rhyme. Okay. JD Rim.
I believe it's right. Now that I say that,
we're going with now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have a pronunciation guide out yet for the new roster. So
I'm a Keontae Scott guy too.
Keontae Scott makes a lot of sense too. There's a lot of those dudes, and so it's just kind of early on, like who's kind of flash and who's impressed. There's a lot of depth in those spots. We talked about how Auburn lost a number of guys in the secondary this offseason, but they brought in a ton as well, especially with the way they closed at corner in this class. So I think we're already seeing some of those effects right now, and it's just going to be situational. And you're not playing football for another 5 plus months at this point. So this is just about mixing and matching and throwing guys out there and just giving them the foundation.
Yep. We jump into more of this Auburn defensive back chatter in just a moment. Is another younger guy possibly ascending in the depth chart? Today's show brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the planet, perhaps even the entire universe. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. And when you go to built.com, you'll see all of these different products and different flavors that they have available for you. And they usually always have 2 or 3 special limited time flavors there as well, depending on the season and things like that. Also, they have Built Puffs, which are absolutely delicious. They're these protein-infused marshmallows that are high in protein, low in calories, low in sugar. They're very sweet. They are delicious. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Justin Ferguson, before I ask you more defensive back related questions, how can people read about the defensive backs, the entire roster, as well as football and basketball? How can they read about all of your work?
Yeah, auburnobserver.com. Check it out. $6 a month or $60 a year. Gets you access to everything we do. A newsletter that comes out. Now that we're in the off season, it'll probably be more like 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah, there was one time where I was writing 5 or 6 of them a week during the season, but and then we have a couple podcasts as well that go along with it. There's a free one on the weekends. You can check out wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you subscribe, you get the bonus podcast. And we had a good one on Thursday where we talked a ton about football and basketball and a lot of topics there that Painter and I covered about just what's going on with the roster and both of these teams as we get into kind of really the heart of the offseason here coming up.
Lindsay and I were joking. We think you need to start selling a shirt that says $6 a month or $60 a year, and that just be it. Just orange and blue font. That's all you need.
Yeah, just the bet. I mean, that's what I tell people all the time is like, we haven't done any like advertising anywhere. We haven't like bought, ad spots at places, any marketing kind of stuff like that.
I mean, you're doing stuff like this. I mean, this is your
yeah, exactly. But the people, our number one biggest marketing tool is people who subscribe. And so, when everybody just says that online and tells their friends, like, it is definitely the best way to tell you. It's better than any actual ad could do.
Yep. No, I think it's great. Yeah, $6 a month or $60 a year. I love it. It's just kind of become its own thing. So, all right, did it surprise you at all that Torrance entered the portal? Because it seems like the reasoning that a lot of people are going to is like 80 Diamond is climbing the depth chart. Are you hearing similar things? Is that what you're hearing at all?
Yeah, well, we saw, so there had been 3 open windows before Wednesday, before these guys entered the portal, but him and Demetrius Davis. And I went to 2 of them. I didn't go to the 3rd one because I was on the way to basketball.
Did you enter the portal? I didn't realize. I thought the world would burn down if that happened. My bad. So I hadn't seen everything, but I have seen 80 Diamond kind of be in the mix in that 2 deep. And you didn't really just see that much of Rowe. And I think the thing with Rowe is he came in, he played a role, wasn't necessarily a guy that played a ton, but Auburn went in and then hit that. I mean, they got so many cornerbacks and defensive backs in this class. Yeah. And, I don't know if you want to necessarily say recruiting over somebody's head, even though that's kind of the go-to term in that. But, I think the writing was on the wall a little bit. And when some of these younger guys are kind of stepping up and making moves, I think J.D. Rim's another guy. Like, we've heard a little bit more about him, this offseason or the spring practice. So, not too much of a surprise. And this is a guy who, did his work in JUCO and did an excellent job. And he's going to have opportunities to play elsewhere. He wasn't kind of that instant impact, big time guy for Auburn last season. And Auburn went out and kind of reinforced some of that a little bit. And so go take advantage of the opportunities you have elsewhere. How great of a name would it be if 80 Diamond ascends and becomes this really good corner? I mean, 80 Diamond, that name to an elite cornerback would be like so swag filled. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be so great.
Yeah,
so fun to watch.
Top tier name. 80 Diamond's a great name. I think
so much with that.
I think Cayden Bridges is a great safety name. That just sounds like a dude you don't want to mess with over the middle of the defense. Rim's a good one as well. I mean, there's a lot of top tier names in that secondary. And like DJ James. I mean, DJ James just sounds like a dude that's gonna mess your world up.
He's gonna kick your butt and then he's gonna run for president. It's like, okay, man, okay, cool, whatever.
80 Diamond, though, I think he has got some of that vintage Auburn football player name, like just a little extra to it. Like during that Malzahn era, where if you committed to Auburn, you had like this spectacular name. 80 Diamond definitely is kind of a throwback in that regard.
So, also in your newsletter yesterday, you listed Wesley Steiner and Cam Riley as the same person.
Yes, they are the same person.
Same injury. It kind of seems like that the way the spring has gone on, and it seems like it's those 2 guys with Owen Papo sitting out. So obviously Owen will start. If they're in nickel and there's 2 linebackers, who do you think that second one is? Is it Riley right now, which is he's probably more similar to like Zacoby was, and then Wesley Steiner seems more similar to Owen just because of how freaking athletic he is. What do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I think that would probably be it. Cam Riley is massive, and he continues to get bigger. I mean, he's 6'5", and I thought for a while that there was a chance he could have moved that to edge, but the way he's playing in the box, I think they really like his development there. And Riley has stepped up. He's been a guy that has been a leader, kind of in these drills. Him and Steiner, they're kind of 1-2 right now, just because without Papo, you don't really have a ton of experience you're going off. But yeah, Riley, more of a run and hit type of player like Zacoby is, whereas Steiner, I think he is. When he came in, he looked like a baby Owen, and he kind of still has that kind of game to him. Steiner also, I think, is a dude that coaching staff loves. He is massively intelligent, on and off the field. That's his MO. But I think he has done a really good job of stepping up and trying to be more of a leader for this team. That obviously wins you a lot of favor with his coaching staff. So, they're kind of joined at the hip right now. And so I think until Owen comes back and we see him in fall camp, see what that kind of looks like. But I mean, if you tell me this season that Owen Papo is linebacker number 1 for Auburn, and that Cam Riley and Wesley Steiner are 2A and 2B this season, that would make a ton of sense to me.
Where does Eugene Asante rotate in with this? Had Isaac Shade, he hosts Locked On Tar Heels, and he kind of gave us a little bit of a history lesson. It was more involved than I thought it was involving him, and I thought that was interesting. But I mean, it sounds like a strength of his is pass coverage. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Because I think that's going to be something that Owen's pretty good at this year. Do you possibly put him in third and long situation if he truly is better in that type of coverage?
Yeah, it could be a guy that you put out there if you want to put if you want to stay with a nickel look on those situations, just have more of a coverage weapon at linebacker down the middle of the field. Yeah, I think that's it. Not to say that Riley or Steiner aren't on that, but that is Papo's kind of bread and butter. And you could always you talk about the number of teams in the SEC nowadays that just spread it and throw it around the yard 40, 50 times a game. You want as many coverage weapons as you have at linebacker. You've got to be able to cover to be able to play. But then some of these kind of coverage guys, these coverage specialists, I think definitely play into the picture. So he is he's one of those players that I see that he can be a package guy or develop into somebody. Again, the thing is, it's early for him. We might not have seen much of him so far in practices, but he just got here, right? And then I think a guy like Joko Willis is somebody else. And Willis, I think, is kind of the more of the blitzing type of guy. He can can give you some of that specialty there as well. So it's just about finding who are going to be your go-to guys. And then I think kind of like when the defensive backfield, you try to hit certain spots. Okay, if we're in this situation, we're in this look, if we're facing this type of team or all that, there are guys that can play roles. Because, it's awesome to have 11, 12, 13 guys that you feel like are quote unquote starters that you really, really like. But a great defense, look at any of them. Look at what Georgia did this year. Look at the best ones that Kevin Steele had at Auburn. They had guys that played roles and did them really, really well. And so this is the time of year where you start kind of developing and finding those matches, especially in the second and third levels.
I can't let Justin get out of here without asking him about the latest with the quarterback competition, especially since one of Auburn's quarterbacks has entered the transfer portal. So more on that in just a moment. But I want to tell you guys about our partner, Athletic Greens. They have a product that I use every day that a lot of our hosts use every single day. And I'm talking about Athletic Greens because, I mean, so much has been made about the importance of, gut health and just overall wellness. And Athletic Greens really dives in to all of that. It's a powdery drink that you mix with water first thing in the morning. It tastes great. And seriously, after you take this about 4 or 5 days in a row, you can feel a difference. It's pretty incredible. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and it contains less than a gram of sugar. So there's no GMOs or nasty chemicals or artificial anything like that. And it's recommended by professional athletes and trusted healthcare folks. And they also do so many different things for the community. In 2020, Athletic Greens donated over 1.2 million meals to kids throughout that year. But it's so inexpensive when you look at it about how much you're spending per serving. It's much healthier and easier to use than, your daily cold brew kick. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient and daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just a scoop, water every day. That's it. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/college. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/college. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Also, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. Yes, Auburn's not in it, but obviously March Madness resumes this weekend. There was some stuff last night and, of course, tonight and throughout the rest of the weekend as folks fight for a chance to get into the Final Four going into next week. And you can get in on the action at betonline.net. They have all of your lines. They have all of your props, everything that you need at BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. Jay Ferg, just a few more minutes here. I really appreciate your time, as always. But like we said earlier, Dee Davis is gone. I think it's going to be okay. Dee Davis is gone. And it seems like TJ Finley is really starting to gear up and get some momentum to potentially run away with this thing. Am I being too hasty with that projection?
Maybe a little bit, but I think TJ Finley's got a better chance to claim this job than I think some people think, just because he's a guy that has the experience, and now you have nobody on this roster besides him that has even been on the roster before, right? D. Davis didn't play any, but at least he was around for a year.
He was around, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Finley's been number one in all of the drills. That's not surprising. It is early. I think he is really making a concerted effort to improve his accuracy and, be a more vocal leader on this team now he's kind of settled in. We'll see how it goes. I think it's too early to tell what you've got in Holden Geriner. I mean, it's just like, where these guys fall in the pecking order in drills. Like you can say this with Zach Calzada as well. They're throwing to, because Auburn doesn't have a whole lot of depth at wide receiver. You're throwing to a lot of walk-ons. So it's like, it's harder to kind of get a better get. Whereas TJ, when we see him, he's getting a lot of with the number ones. And of course there's a lot more going on, behind the scenes when we're not out there. I wrote about Robby Ashford. I like Robby Ashford's arm a lot. Now, here's the thing. Robby Ashford played 2 years at Oregon and was not on the field at any. Like, we don't know, arm talent's great. And TJ Finley is a great example. Awesome arm talent. But so much quarterback playing comes down to what happens after the snap, reading, reacting, pocket awareness, and all that. We just don't know what Robby Ashford looks like at the college level yet. This is what this time's kind of figuring out. But man, that dude put some zip on the ball. Like he throws it with a lot of velocity. I like he was neck and neck in a lot of these like accuracy drills and like rollout drills that we saw with him and Finley. So yeah, I mean, I think those are the two guys I've seen the most and probably been the two I've been most impressed with. But again, like, it's kind of, I've only seen them for about an hour basically, all told. And there's a lot of stuff going on away from what we see. And they're making a really good effort, I think, to rotate as much as possible. And like, they're not going to have any sort of real determination until after spring ball. But I think Finley should get a whole lot more credit than people are giving him right now in terms of his back, because he's in a tough spot, man. Like,
he was set up to fail last year.
Yeah. Right. And then they got 3 new quarterbacks in after he struggled towards the end of the year. So like the odds are stacked against him. But can he develop? Can he get better? And also, I mean, it's just, I think Ashford's the wild card just because we haven't seen him at the college level. And the same thing with Geriner, but like, he's at least been around at college.
I don't think Geriner can actually start. I just don't
it would be really hard for somebody to be a true freshman and just beat out 3 guys that have been in college before.
I mean, the amount of pressure that Harsin would put on himself if he did that.
Yeah, he would have to. I think he would have to come in. There had to be like, oh yeah, he's like by far the best option. Kind of like what they did with Bo Nix. Like Bo Nix was by far the best option. When he started as a true freshman. That's the security you gotta have to have in that point. So no, I think Ashford's very much the wild card here. And I think anybody ruling out TJ Finley should pump the brakes. Just a lot of ball game between now and any sort of decision they make at the quarterback spot. And he's a guy that is getting a lot of good quality reps.
Yeah. And my apologies to Robby Ashford. I mean, when that happened, I thought it was just kind of an excuse to get somebody that was kind of from the state back because he wanted to move back or whatever, and they wanted another, quarterback on the roster. But I think he deserves a legitimate look. He
definitely does.
What I initially expected. My apologies to him.
Yeah, he's got a great arm, and again, we'll see what it looks like when the bullets are flying. But like, we are not going to see what happens when the bullets are flying. So it's going to be about who looks best behind closed doors and who makes the biggest impression on their coaches.
Right. Justin Ferguson, one more time, how can people find you, hear you, support you, all that good stuff?
AuburnObserver.com. Sign up there. $6 a month, $60 a year.
It is.
You get newsletters and podcasts sent to your email inbox most days of the week.
Awesome. That is another Ferg Friday in the books. We'll be back on Monday to recap everything that happened over the weekend. This has been Locked On Auburn.